So Sarah is for the defense, Mr. Ward, and Matt for the defense is Ms. Wellington. And I believe eventually we'll get into examination by plaintiff, Mr. Carter.
Okay. Ready? Sevens, ready, begin. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. The record should reflect that we are resuming in the depot of Karen Baxter. Since we have a different court reporter today, I think we should state our appearances again for the record.
Thank you. James Ward for the defendant, Tanya Marshall.
Susan Wellington for the defendant, Shuttle King.
And I am Michael Carter for the plaintiff, Joseph Lewis. Are we ready to resume?
I want to note for the record that my client is not being able to be here this morning due to a prior conflict. She may be able to join us later this afternoon.
That shouldn't be a problem.
That shouldn't be a problem. No objection. She has a right to be here. Of course, I didn't think it was necessary to wait for her. Are you requesting that we postpone until the afternoon when she can be here?
No, not at all. I just wanted to state that on the record. I am ready to proceed. Let's go ahead and begin if we are all ready.
Ma'am, are you ready to begin?
Sure, I apologize for being a little late.
That's fine. We all just got here. We can go ahead and start then.
I will remind you, Ms. Baxter, that you are still under oath.
I understand.
I thank you for returning today so we can complete your deposition.
No problem. I hope we will be finished today, though. I have scheduled a flight out of town next week.
Then we better get started right away.
Thank you.
When we left off, I was inquiring about your statements to the officer on the scene. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
When you were giving your statement to the responding officer, where did that initially occur?
It was just right there on the corner near where the accident happened.
Do you remember that particular officer's name?
That day I spoke to 3 different ones. The first one was a woman. I don't recall her name.
Do you remember the name of the officer who took your full statement?
Yes, the last name was Rogers.
Was that a man or a woman?
He was the man.
And you said it was on the corner of Sycamore and Greenfield Drive.
Sorry to interrupt. I believe you meant Sycamore and Baker.
You are correct.
I don't want there to be confusion later between the 2 witnesses.
I think we should allow the witness to answer the questions. She can correct any counsel if they are confused.
I do recall that it was Baker. The officer interviewed me on the corner.
Thank you.
When the officer questioned you about what you had seen that day, were you being truthful with him that morning?
Absolutely.
That day, did you feel confused about what you had seen in any way?
I don't believe so, no.
How long after the accident did you speak to Officer Rogers?
As I said earlier, I spoke to 3 different ones. The first officer just told me before I could leave that I needed to wait until someone spoke to me for my statement.
Okay.
The second one took my name and contact information. She told me to wait for Officer Rogers.
And that's why you waited on the corner?
That's right.
You have previously told us what you observed that morning. I just have a couple more questions about your conversation with my client after the accident.
Okay.
Do you recall speaking to Joseph Lewis that morning?
Yes, I did.
Had you ever met him prior to that morning?
No, I did not.
Are you aware he works in the area?
I don't have any idea where he works.
When did you first approach him that morning?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Did you approach Mr. Lewis or did he approach you?
I was standing there after the accident and he came up to me on the corner.
Was that the only time you spoke to Mr. Lewis?
After the collision and once the cars were all settled, I looked over and he was sitting in the pickup truck looking around.
Did you approach his pickup truck at that time?
No, I just hollered to him to ask if he was okay.
Was his window down?
Yes, it was.
Did it appear that Mr. Lewis heard your comments to him?
He looked directly at me. He didn't say anything.
Did you have any further conversation with him?
I asked again if he was okay.
Did he respond to you on that second attempt?
Correct. He nodded his head. I hollered that I was going to call 911.
When Mr. Lewis later approached you on the corner, do you recall what the conversation was at that time?
I told him he should just sit down and wait for the police to get there.
I want to clarify. Did you have a conversation with Joseph Lewis on the corner?
Not really. He appeared to be pretty dazed the whole time I saw him. That's why I wanted him to sit down and wait for the medical people.
While you two were on the corner, did you overhear any discussion Mr. Lewis had with anyone else?
Not really. There was a woman who came over and was talking to him. I didn't really hear what she was saying.
Did you see where that woman came from?
I think she was in the van.
Do you mean the shuttle van that was involved in the accident?
Correct.
Why do you believe she was involved with the shuttle?
I am pretty positive I saw her when I was walking on the sidewalk.
Where do you believe you observed her?
She was sitting in the shuttle when it was stopped at the signal.
You believe she was a passenger in the shuttle.
Correct.
Did you have a conversation with her that morning?
No, I didn't.
Is there any reason why you didn't ask if she was okay, if you thought she was in the van?
Not really. I guess I didn't think about it. She came running over to the corner and appeared like she was fine.
All right. Again, I appreciate your time today. I believe the other parties have some questions for you as well.
Okay.
Counsel, did you have any further questions for Ms. Baxter?
I will defer to Miss Wellington.
All right, thank you.
I will have some questions before the witness leaves.
No problem. Thank you.
Ms. Baxter, let me ask you about the woman that you just were speaking about. You said that she appeared to you to be fine, is that correct?
Yes, she did.
And what gave you that impression? Did you speak to her at all about that subject?
Not really. I just remember her running over to the corner and getting out of the street. After she had been there for a minute, she then started talking to Mr. Lewis.
And do you recall what that conversation was? Did you overhear any of that?
She just was saying that accidents were always scary. I really don't think that she knew who he was at first.
Why do you say that?
Because she asked him if he saw what happened.
Did Mr. Lewis reply?
He said he didn't see anything and only heard the brakes.
Okay.
I guess it would be the tires from the driver trying to stop.
Excuse me, I'm going to object. Speculation.
Sorry.
That's okay. We just want your observations from that morning.
Ms. Baxter, let me just remind you of something. As we instructed you last time, you just need to answer the question as it is posed to you. Please don't offer anything or try to fill in any gaps.
I understand.
Thank you.
You testified Mr. Lewis told this woman that he heard brakes.
He said that he heard tires skidding.
Are those the specific words that he used?
That's just what I recall. I can't say that I remember the exact words.
Earlier you testified that you didn't really hear their conversation. Do you recall anything specifically, or are you just guessing what their words might have been?
I heard the comment about the tires. I overheard her ask him if he saw anything. That's about it.
What happened after that?
Police came over and took him away.
Did they escort him somewhere?
Police officer came over and asked him to follow him back to the police car.
Did you then have any conversation with the woman you believed came from the shuttle?
Not that I remember. I think she left pretty soon after that happened.
When you say that, do you mean she left the scene?
I don't know where she went. She left the corner area where I was. She probably went back to the van.
Objection. Speculation.
Sorry.
Nothing further at this time.
I have a few more questions, please.
All right.
Ms. Baxter, you testified you saw the pickup truck sitting at the traffic signal. Is that correct?
Yes.
What other automobiles do you remember at the light, if any?
The pickup was first at the crosswalk. There was the shuttle van behind the pickup in the same lane.
Okay. Do you remember any other? Let me strike that. How many lanes of travel were there at the intersection?
There were two on each side.
Do you recall if there were any automobiles or trucks in the lane next to the van?
If there were, I couldn't see them. The van is pretty big, and I don't remember seeing any other cars next to it.
Now, I wanted to clear something up. Did you actually see the accident when it happened?
Definitely.
Or did you just hear it?
I observed it. I was walking on the sidewalk and was going to cross the street at the corner.
Had you come to a stop at the corner before the accident happened? Were you still walking down the sidewalk?
I was standing at the corner when I heard the collision.
Did you initially hear the accident or see it first?
It was at the same moment. I heard the screeching and then the crash. It was perfectly in front of my line of vision.
Now tell us again what you observed.
The shuttle collided into the back of the pickup truck. There was a blue car behind the van. The blue car crashed into the shuttle.
Did you draw a diagram for the police officer that morning?
Oh, that's correct. I had forgotten that I did that.
I have a copy of a diagram. Did you want to use that to refresh her recollection?
That's great. Thank you. Do you have extra copies? Is this your only one?
You are welcome to use that one. I believe I have a couple more with me today if we need them.
Thank you.
Why don't we mark that as an exhibit?
I have no objection to that. Maybe she can just identify the diagram and we can go from there.
Let's mark it next in order.
No objection, thank you.
That would be 14.
Miss Baxter, do you recognize the diagram marked as 14?
Yes.
How do you recognize that?
This is what I drew that morning when I was speaking to Officer Rogers.
Does this depict the position of the parties that morning as you remember them?
Yes, it does.
Do you see here you put, well, strike that. Did you draw the diagram or did Officer Rogers?
I drew the boxes for the cars.
All right. Now, do you see here?
Officer Rogers drew the streets and the sidewalks. He just asked me to put boxes where I remembered the cars being stopped.
Okay. Do you see where there are boxes depicted in both lanes?
Yes, I don't remember doing that. Those are my markings. I guess I forgot about those cars.
As you sit here this morning, do you remember there being cars in both lanes of travel?
I really don't. I just remember the pickup truck and the van. I also remember the blue car that had the young girl in it.
Do you have any conversations or dealings with that young girl?
No, she had lots of people in her car. I didn't talk to her.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing further.
Ms. Baxter, when you were answering questions earlier, you said that you remembered the pickup and the van being stopped at the light. Is that correct?
That's right.
Were they stopped at the light before you observed the blue car driven by the girl?
I believe so. I know the pickup was stopped at the crosswalk and that the van was slowing to a stop. That's when I heard the brakes and the crash.
Did you hear any loud music before the collision?
I don't recall music.
Do you recall when you initially observed the automobile with the younger girl driving?
They were all there together. It was at the pickup, the van, and then the blue car.
Do you have an opinion on whether the van was moving or stopped before the collision?
Objection calls for speculation, no foundation.
She can give her opinion.
The witness is here to testify as to what her observations and actions were that day. She testified that the van was slowing to a stop.
I can rephrase the question.
That's fine.
Ms. Baxter, as you are standing at the corner and observing the pickup truck stopped at the crosswalk, tell us what you saw happen.
The van was slowing down to a stop behind the pickup. The blue car was behind the shuttle. They all crashed into each other.
Do you recall if the van had come to a complete stop before the blue car drove within your view?
I don't believe so.
Objection, speculation.
If you're not sure, it is okay to say you don't know. We only want what you observed, not what you guess or think might have happened.
Okay, the shuttle was slowing down. I don't think it had completely stopped before the blue car collided into it. The van then hit the pickup.
Ma'am, did you tell the officer that you heard music before the collision?
I really don't remember that.
Would it refresh your recollection if I showed you a copy of the police report with your statement in it?
I suppose it would, sir. I don't know.
Is there any objection by anyone to my showing her the police report?
No objection.
Let me ask you something first. Are you planning to mark that document as an exhibit?
I don't really believe we need to do that. We already have the deposition of...
Let's just mark it as an exhibit, and then we will have it if we need it.
All right, that's fine.
No objection.
Ma'am, let me show you this report and see if that refreshes your memory.
Okay.
Just read the paragraph starting here. Let me know when you are finished
All right, I read it.
Does that refresh your memory that you told Officer Rogers that you heard loud music before the crash?
Well, I really don't remember saying that. Since it is written here, I must have said it.
Objection.
I can rephrase the question.
All right.
Ma'am, it is okay if you don't remember this or it doesn't refresh your recollection. That's all we want to know.
Okay.
Does this refresh your recollection of that statement that you gave to Officer Rogers?
It really doesn't. I don't recall saying anything about music. That seems like something I would recall if I had said it.
Objection, non-responsive.
Ma'am, did you ever speak to an Officer Porter that day?
Not unless that was the name of the second one who got my name and contact info.
Do you recall if that was a man or a woman?
I believe that was a woman. I know I talked to 3 different ones. I believe Officer Rogers was the only man.
Nothing further, thank you.
I have just a couple questions.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Ms. Baxter, I neglected to ask you if you had any contact with the shuttle driver that morning. Do you remember ever talking to that person?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember that person's name?
No, I don't. She was very nice. I don't remember asking her for a name or anything personal like that.
How did you come in contact with the driver of the van?
She came out of the shuttle and was walking around the street. She came over and sat on the curb after the police officer spoke to her.
Did you observe if the officer directed her to the curb?
I believe he did. I couldn't hear anything that they said to each other.
Is that when you approached her?
I didn't go up to her or anything like that. She was sitting on the curb right next to me. I just asked her if she was okay or needed anything.
Was there anyone else around when you were having that conversation with her?
There were always people around me. It is a busy intersection, and there were a lot of people there that morning.
Just so we understand the area where this happened.
It is a business complex, and there are lots of offices around there.
What time did this occur?
It had to be before 9 o'clock because I start work at 9. I was heading into my building when it all happened.
What time do you usually arrive at work?
9 o'clock is my start time. I usually try to get there a little bit before that every morning.
Do you remember what day of the week this was?
Friday.
You testified that there were lots of people around. Could you estimate for us how many people saw the accident?
Objection calls for speculation. She can't testify to how many people witnessed the accident.
Maybe you can rephrase the question.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do you recall how many people were at the corner waiting for the light at the same time you were?
There were at least 5 other people waiting to cross the street with me. I don't know if they saw what happened or not, but it was right in front of us.
Thank you. Nothing further.
I would like to mark this photograph as 15. I have another one that will be 16.
No objection.
No objection.
Ma'am, do you recognize what these photos are?
Yes, that's the crosswalk where the accident happened.
Do you know when these were taken?
Well, it wasn't that morning because there are no cars there. I don't know when they were taken.
But you do recognize this as the street where the accident occurred?
It is the crosswalk directly outside my building where I work. I cross that street right there every morning.
So then you are familiar with this area?
I am afraid so.
Nothing further.
Nothing further.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.